Go, Adam.
So hi all. Yeah, hi all. Adam Gohl, worked for AMSA, joined them in 2015, based out of Adelaide. Electrician by trade, but with 12 of the years in the Navy with avionics. So this is a presentation that I did for the marine inspectors not that long ago. So, oops, you guys got me still? Still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, all good, Adam.
My audio just sounded funny. What electrical standards apply to domestic commercial vessels? This was obviously from the MI, so I'll skip through this pretty quickly because it's I don't want to be monkey see, monkey do. EXO2, so there are non-survey boats. We've got no electrical standards are prescribed within exemption 2, so that makes it pretty difficult. And then existing ones, whatever electrical standards that applied on the 30th of June 2013. The COS, less than 35 metres, is the NSCB C5B and F2, which also refers to 3004.2, and the state territory electrical regulator requirements or class rules. COS new is greater than 35 metres in class rules. COS transitional is the USL Section 9 Part 4, and the RCDs have to be in accordance with ASNZS 3000, which is the wiring rules. RCDs for the people from overseas are residual current devices, so electrical safety switch. COS existing is whatever the electrical standard was that applied on June the 30th, 2013, which may have been the NSCB, USL, or none at all, depending on the previous state requirements. Coming into the job, a lot of the states didn't do much with electrical, so that sort of made it a bit hard, but it is what it is. And then we've got exemption 40, which are usually smaller boats, restricted to not far off the coast. C5B refers to 3004.2 and your state and electrical territory requirements. Next. So to the lithium batteries now, characteristics are they have high charge and discharge rates, so you can get energy into them quicker and they can discharge pretty well as well. More expensive than a conventional battery, and they require a battery management system. That's an obligate. That's a rule. They provide a high discharge current, and they can go down to lower capacity. Like they can use more of what's in the battery compared to a lead acid battery. Good power to weight ratio. So a same size lead acid battery weighs considerably more than a lithium-ion battery. There is a danger for a thermal runaway. We'll get to what that is in a bit. The battery management system is there to prevent damage to the battery by monitoring temperatures, discharge currents, charging currents, and any other critical items or critical parameters of the battery. Thermal runaway. That picture that was on the first screen is a picture of one that was in thermal runaway. Irreversible process where the gases are released at high temperature, like hydrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, halogens, methane, amongst others. They are released at temperatures ranging from 600 to 1,000 degrees centigrade. So the gases that are released can also start secondary fires. All these compounds pose a serious risk to health, either long-term or short-term, or even just by displacing the oxygen that's in a compartment. What causes the runaway? And sorry, I'm just rushing through it, knowing that time's an issue. So manufacturing faults. So the more you spend, generally, the better the quality of the item. You don't want to buy an Alibaba special. External sources of heat, so you don't situate the battery right next to the heat exchanger or the exhaust system. Overcharging and over discharging, so makes sense if you put too much into it. She doesn't enjoy it, and over discharging, so if you go too low, you can cause damage. Under and over temperature, a lot of people don't realise that low temperature is just as bad as high. If you put too much current into the battery, you can cause the runaway. And then structural damage. So if you've got the battery situated in the bow and it's continually slamming, you can cause issues up the front. And I have no idea how to pronounce the Ytterrongen, or however you pronounce it, the ferry fire that was in Norway. The firefighters on the scene had to be hospitalised. I'm not sure if they didn't realise that there were lithium batteries involved, or they just weren't prepared. Other issues, fighting the fire. We have safety management systems in Australia, so if you have lithium batteries, you need to annotate that there's lithium batteries on board and what you're going to do about it if there is a fire. When a battery reaches the thermal runaway, it does not require oxygen to combust. It's self-sustaining, so that makes it, throw it in the water, she'll still burn. Surrounding structures and equipment may be susceptible to the superheated gases that have entered, as I said, the secondary fires. Risk to personnel in combating lithium metal or lithium-ion battery fire, so have to have the correct PPE. And generally, you can't do anything, so get off. But obviously go upwind. And there is no easy solution to extinguishing a lithium fire, as in some cases, use of water may make the situation worse. And we've all seen those car ferries recently and the damage that was caused to those. If a vessel is not required to comply with specific standards, how to ensure that these kinds of risks are addressed. The Australian standards, or the Australian regs, is the National Law Act. We've got general safety duties. The national law places a general safety duty on the owners, manufacturers, repairers of domestic vessels to ensure, as far as reasonably practical, that the vessels are safe. So the onus is on the persons buying, supplying, installing, manufacturing to give you, the vessel owner, a safe item for use. We know these two batteries meet the standards. We're not advertising. We don't advertise any particular brand over any other, but out of interest, these ones do. AS/NZS 3004.2 on a new vessel, you've got the added standard guidance, which is 2.9.3. So part A, we've got lithium batteries shall be installed in locations that ensure the battery manufacturer's specified operating temps cannot be exceeded and are appropriate for the IP rating of the battery and its management system. Self-explanatory. All lithium batteries shall be provided with battery management system. And you notice there's a lot of shalls in these standards, so you must. And it's either integrated into the battery pack or it's a separate component located adjacent nearby. The BMS shall continuously monitor voltage, and the versions don't do each cell. They just monitor the region, the area. All charging sources shall be automatically disconnected by the BMS when the voltage exceeds the manufacturer's recommended maximum. All connected loads shall be automatically disconnected. I'm stressing shall again. When the voltage falls below the manufacturer's minimum, the battery shall be automatically disconnected by the BMS from all connected loads and all charging sources when temperature exceeds the manufacturer's specs. The BMS shall provide an audible and visual alarm at the normal vessel operating position before a disconnection event occurs. So that's to give the operator a chance to throttle back so they're not putting as much load on the battery and possibly reducing the temperature so they can continue operation. Lithium-ion battery ventilation airflow shall be in accordance with the manufacturer's requirements, and if there's none, it's got to be in accordance with the standard 2.922 and 2.923, and they are a shall. I'll take questions at the end anyway. My audio, I can't hear anyone, so that means there's no questions coming in, so that's good. A lot of the people are thinking that you can just drop in a new battery and change it over, but as you've seen, you're increasing the risk, and the potential of hazard is higher with a lithium battery compared to a lead acid. Lithium batteries may not be just a drop-in replacement, despite how they may be advertised. What a lithium-ion battery needs to be considered as a system, so it contains the battery or batteries, the BMS, plus the charging and comms between these components. So the master volt on the next slide, they require a 500 amp fuse with a minimum DC braking capacity of 15,000 amps, so kilo amps. So the potential energy in these batteries is a lot higher. And the issue with the DC current, you can open the terminals, and as you open it, the spark just grows. It ionizes the air, and it reaches a point where their plates are far enough apart that it will break. Whereas an AC circuit has a sine wave, so twice the cycle, it switches off, so the switch isn't exposed to that much current, unlike a DC. That's why DC terminals and contacts are much larger. Yeah, that's just a spec. Don't need that. What an AMS should look for during surveys: look for any obvious new work on a vessel or a vessel battery system. Consider if there is adequate ventilation of the battery spaces. Is the battery location appropriate, not above fuel space, and is the battery secured? Are there any external sources of heat? And that can just be the sun if it's up on the deck. Warning signs must be installed. Lithium batteries can look the same as a lead acid battery, so check the labels. Ask the owner operator if they've recently changed the system. Other structural or system changes may have been undertaken to enable them to do that. Check the installation is in accordance with the manufacturer's guidance specs. Good practice is to have a gas detector fitted to provide early indication of venting. The studies have shown that when the lithium-ion battery gets close to spontaneous combustion, it releases trace elements of gases. So if you can monitor those prior to reaching it, there's a chance of actually throttling back and hopefully preventing it. But most of this is controlled by the BMS. So if the BMS is working, this shouldn't happen, but as we've seen, it can happen. Check that the vessel's SMS takes into account the associated risks, firefighting, maintenance, and all of the sundry. Different types of batteries. These are basically a C-cell battery that are all joined together. So issues with these is there's a lot of terminals, so there's a lot of chances of faults happening. Pros, they're much quicker, therefore cheaper, good cycling ability, long calendar life. Cons, they're heavier, and there's a lot of wasted space, so there's low packing density. These ones are your cylindrical, prismatic, or polymer. So cylindrical's obviously the round one that we saw before. Your prismatic is rectangular, and then you've got your polymer, which is a foil that expands and contracts. Each battery type has its own pros and cons. That's what's in the juice battery. You can see all the cells in there, they're prismatic. You got the monitoring system, and it's either wired. You got the controller and the BMS. It's all integral to the system. Currently, batteries obviously are being used in boats. That one's got the normal lead acid batteries. You've got the Optima on the right, and then you've got your normal lead on the left. Cars, the house batteries. I'm sure we've all seen photos of the house batteries on fire and scooters. Mick will know these boats in the middle. This is what we see on non-survey boats. This is a bit different. This is the Wellington ferry in New Zealand. There's 6 of these, so 3 in each hull. This is obviously the other side, the spectrum compared to these. When you see the size of the cooling systems, a tube that size makes a big, you can tell there's a lot of current flow. The Norwegian firefighters, they've got breathing apparatus on there, but you can see the deck heat. That power tool was in Darwin. Tradie had his no brand, no name, was a branded one, but I won't be naming it. Cooked off in his car just as he was driving, so he's lucky he was in there. He was able to quickly throw it out so it didn't burn to the ground. And the other one's an e-bike left on charge. Yeah, we all know about the car carrying ships that have the issues, and then just some other references in there. That's the boss's dog. Not too sure about a electric vacuum cleaner, but yeah, that's a quick down and dirty. I'll unshare because I can't hear any audio from you guys.
You're still sharing, Adam.
Stop sharing. There we go.
There you go. You've done it. You've done it. Look, thanks ever so much. You've given a very succinct presentation on it. I think this is the hottest topic at the moment of this year. I don't know. I'd like to encourage a little bit of debate. Does anybody want to try and put something out there? Start a conversation? Any thoughts?
Hope so.
Any thoughts from anybody? I mean, I'm happy to go. You go on. Far away.
Yeah, Mike. I understand that when they were using these batteries in aircraft, they actually were contained in fireproof boxes, and that was basically where Boeing had to go to in the 787 Dreamliner.
Yep. I've got two friends who are pilots, and I was astonished when one of them told me that they have between 4 and 6 incidents a month now involving lithium-ion phone batteries. And I did wonder, as some of you might have done, when you get on a plane and when they give the safety demonstration, they say if you drop your phone down the side of your chair, please don't try and recover it. I wondered why that was the case. And apparently it's because if you put your hand down and you start agitating the phone, that can cause a problem, and smoke will start to come out. And what they do is they grab the phone, and you're absolutely right, Nick, they stuff it into, they carry these special steel boxes now on board, and they pop the phone into the steel box, and it's left there until they get to the destination airport, and then they deal with the problem and get it off. But I don't want to dominate this conversation, but there's a few things that I would like to say. I went to a presentation earlier this year given by a firm of maritime lawyers, and they were talking very much about are lithium-ion batteries safe on super yachts? That was the presentation. And they gave a statistic that said as many as 70 super yachts, large yachts and super yachts last year were victims to lithium-ion battery fires, which in itself is a shocking statistic because, as Adam's just said, you can't put them out, or they're very, very hard to put out. And then when we dug down a bit deeper in the presentation, the panelists said, what's causing the fires is it's not the lithium-ion batteries, it's the toys on board. And that's what Adam has just said. And I hadn't appreciated that. So you've got these toys on board, they're probably stored in the toy cabinet, cupboard, whatever. They're right next door to the fuel. And when one of those goes, and they go for various reasons, as you will know, Adam, they're either being overcharged. I always used to leave my mobile phone and my tablet on overnight charging. Do you know what? Won't do that anymore because they say that Apple products in this case are safe and they know when to cut off. I wouldn't trust that. And the reason that we've seen in the UK electric scooters and electric bikes literally blowing up are because they've been overcharged, they're not using the right charging cable, all of those things. So please, just in your own personal lives, think about that. You touched on house batteries, Adam, as well. I was at an inland waterways marina in the UK some months ago, and they are seeing a lot of house batteries now being fitted to boats and yachts. And I said, well, why would you do that? He said, because they're half the price. They're half the price of a marine lithium-ion battery. So some boaters, of course, are looking for ways to save money. So please keep an eye out for that. The reason that a house battery is not suitable, as I understand it, Adam, you'll know more, I'm not technical, is because they are designed not to move. They're fitted in a house and they're just left there, that's it. But of course, on a boat, they're going to be subject to all sorts of movement. So if you see a house battery fitted in a boat, lithium-ion battery, that needs to come out. So I could go on and on this subject because it's something I have got quite engaged with. And I find it truly shocking. But question for you, Adam, as a regulator, I think you are in a really difficult position because you are now always behind the curve on this one. There's new information coming out all the time. I followed Hurricane Ian, I think it was, in Florida at the end of last year. And that was a bad one. And the first responders got to somewhere in Florida where there was a 10 foot of water, 3 meters of water. And inside that water were Teslas, I think they were, that were burning in water. And the fire brigade hadn't got a clue what to do. They said, well, that can't be. How can a car burn in water? And they didn't actually know what to do. They couldn't put the fires out. And we've seen cases in the UK just this year. There have been 3 certainly that I've read about where a car has caught fire on the motorway. So it's pulled over to the hard shoulder, safely off the motorway. It's then caught fire, electrical vehicle, caught fire. The fire brigade have arrived. They don't know what to do with it. They can't fight the fire. You have to, as I understand it, reduce the temperature really rapidly. So they're now carrying great big vats of water, and they just dump the car into these vats and leave it there. And they've done this on a few occasions. They then loaded one of them after the fire was out onto a recovery truck. That drove 20 miles up the road, and the fire reignited and took the recovery truck down with it. So that's not clever either. And what was the final point I wanted to make? Well, there we go. That's enough, isn't it? So, Adam, as a regulator, how do you try and get ahead of the curve on this?
With difficulty.
Hopefully,
yeah, hopefully you got that. With a lot of difficulty, it's extremely difficult. New technologies coming in, new battery types, new manufacturers. We knew it was coming. We knew this was there, but as a regulator, it's hard to get ahead of new technology. Composites would have been the first one for wood boats. It's extremely difficult. We can only do what we can do, and as a regulator, it's generally being reactive. As the saying goes, the quickest way to get change is to have a fatality, which is the sad way, because
sadly,
you'd rather get ahead of it. But yeah, so I'm glad you guys can hear me, because I can't hear you. I can see your lips moving there.
So there's I'll
unmute and then I can.
There's a company in Norway, Havila. I don't know if you know Havila. They run some small cruise ships and ferries up around from Bergen up north around the west coast of Norway. And I read just a few weeks ago that the managing director of Havila has now banned electric vehicles from his fleet. He said, I'm not carrying them. And somebody said, well, why not? You know, Norway, you're so advanced with all of this technology. They're really moving rapidly down the electric route. And he said, because my crew are not trained to handle electric vehicle fires, they don't know what to do. We can't put the fires out. I'm just not having them on there. So, I mean, that is a really draconian approach to the problem. But it is a real challenge. And I would urge you all just to get as much knowledge as you can on lithium-ion batteries. As I say, the feeling, having spoken to people, the feeling is it's not so much new builds that have got them in are probably, you know, okay, there's no problem with the propulsion system. They're pretty good. But once you get a concoction of them colliding with seawater, that's not good. Seawater and so on doesn't mix with this technology. So anyway, Peter's popped some stuff up here. What have you got here, Peter? I loaded 33 containers with US £5 million worth of Li batteries, loaded onto a container vessel, and there was no special loading plan for the containers. Well, that doesn't sound good. That sounds potentially dangerous. And Peter also says involved in exporting Li batteries from manufacturing Korea out to the world, and I see very little regulation in the packing and transportation. So, right, someone's got a hand up. Greensail, I don't know your name. Sorry, Mr. Greensail. Come and say hello. You need to unmute you. Oh, you are unmuted.
No one can hear me, mate.
I'm not hearing your question. I'm sorry. Adam, can you hear?
You need to unmute.
Yeah, you are unmuted, but I just can't hear. I'm so sorry. Can you put something into chat for us? Sorry about that. I just can't hear. No one can seem to hear you. Anybody else want to contribute to this debate? We've got 2 or 3 minutes before we need to move on. Are you seeing any cases in Australia of super yachts and large yachts catching fire from lithium ion? Anything happening down there at this stage? A lot going on in the Med. Just waiting for this question to pop up in chat. In New Zealand, the ferries cover EV car fires with fire blankets. That sounds incredibly sensible. Adam, what would the regulators' view on that be? Yeah, no other means of firefighting. So Adam's struggling with his sound, but he's got the thumbs up saying yes, he would think that's probably a sensible thing. So a little bit more information I can give you. Allianz, one of the big insurers, are so concerned by the most recent case, the Fremantle Highway, which I have to say, there's no report out yet. It's only suspicions that that was caused by an EV battery fire. It's too early yet. The report will be 2 years away. I heard somebody saying that the cost to the insurers could be as much as $500 million. Get your mind around that number, $500 million. So what does that mean for the insurers? Insurers are now starting to say, I'm not sure we want to insure those cargoes, or we'll insure them, but we're going to impose some kind of limitations on your insurance cover. And Allianz indeed actually are even asking for a new type of ship to be built to carry EV vessels safely. So it's a real big problem. This Mark says, we just had a fire at Sydney Airport car park. The battery had been removed from the car whilst parked, overheated, and destroyed 5 vehicles. And that's the other thing I do know. The trouble is I have too much knowledge and I don't have enough knowledge, if you know what I mean. I understand these fires jump from one vehicle to another vehicle. In the case of if you're in a marina, they jump from one boat to another boat. There's some horrifying videos on the internet where you can see, I saw one of 7 lorries side by side, electric lorries. One fire started at one end and within 10 minutes, it had jumped all the way down the line and all 7 lorries were basically reduced to a pile of nothing. So sorry to be doom and gloom with all of this subject, but it is a real hot topic. Mick, are you wanting to say something there?
Yeah, I just had a question there for Adam Gohl before we finish. Regarding the electrical installations above 30 kilowatts, this makes the vessel a novel vessel. Is there anything from AMSA that we should look forward to in that space? Like, is there? I know a lot of clients want to be innovative and make the vessels green and so on and so forth. Yet when they go down this path, it just turns into something that's super expensive and a pathway that they won't go down just simply because of the regulation. What part do you think AMSA can play in that? You're still muted there, Adam.
You try to unmute,
sorry
Adam.
about that. Yeah.
Or use the chat.
Little 3 dots there and unmute. But obviously, there's an issue there. Mike, is there an issue on your end there that you've only unmuted the hosts? Is there a centralized mute there or something like that?
The trouble is, if I unmute everybody, then everybody is live and they've got live microphones and the recording will be impaired.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
I can unmute Adam, but can you unmute yourself, Adam?
No, can't.
No. Let me try.
I can, but then I can't hear you. You guys can hear me, but I can't hear you talking.
Yeah, Yeah, we can hear
I'll
you.
just talk. Ben Cantle's in charge of novel vessel policy. We've got the 30 kilowatt hours. That was an arbitrary amount that was mentioned. The rule of going to class is what the rules are at the moment, but we are still open to people coming in and saying, but we've built it to the Norwegian have got a standard for up to a certain capacity, and if we've built it to this, is this suitable? But we just tell people to come and talk to us before they tell someone to go down a different route. No, we know the class isn't necessarily the best option for the vessels that we're talking about, but the Norwegian standard is actually pretty good and works pretty well. I was working with Dave Potter, who was the chair of AS 3004 year and a half, 2 years ago, just before the America's Cup was on in New Zealand, and we did develop a draft that ended up getting watered down, and they've got Maritime New Zealand has got that on their system now. But yeah, it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Adam.
Adam, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm just going to stop the recording and then let's move on.